Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. The steam from the pasta pot curled upward like whispered secrets, and Elena found herself lost in its dance. At 42, she had learned to find poetry in the mundane. The way sunlight filtered through her kitchen window, the rhythm of chopping vegetables, the quiet satisfaction of creating something nourishing from simple ingredients. But tonight, even these small pleasures couldn't quiet the restlessness that had been growing in her chest for months. She stirred the marinara sauce with practiced ease, the wooden spoon moving in slow circles as her mind wandered to places she rarely allowed it to go. The house felt too quiet, too empty, despite the fact that her 18-year-old son, Marcus, would be home from his part-time job any minute. The silence had a weight to it, pressing against her shoulders like an old shawl she couldn't quite shake off. The front door opened with its familiar creak, and she heard Marcus's footsteps in the hallway. But something was different about his usual rhythm, hesitant, almost careful. When he appeared in the kitchen doorway, Elena noticed the way he lingered there, as if gathering courage for something. "Mum," he said, his voice carrying an unfamiliar gravity that made her turn fully to face him. "We need to talk." The spoon slipped from her fingers, clattering against the stovetop. In all their years together, through scraped knees and broken hearts, through the divorce that had shattered their little family when Marcus was 12, he had never used that tone with her. It was the voice of a man, not the boy she still sometimes saw when she looked at him. "What is it, sweetheart?" she asked, though something deep in her stomach already knew this conversation would change everything. Marcus ran his hand through his dark hair, a gesture so reminiscent of his father that Elena felt a familiar pang of loss mixed with something else she didn't want to name. "I saw Dad today," he said quietly, "at the coffee shop near campus." Eleanor's world tilted slightly. She gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles white against the granite. "Oh," was all she managed, though 1,000 questions crowded her throat. "He asked about you," Marcus continued, stepping closer. "He's been asking about you for months, Mom. Every time I see him." He paused, studying her face with eyes that held too much wisdom for his age. "I think he still loves you." The words hung in the air between them, like a bridge neither of them was sure they should cross. Elena felt her breath catch, felt the careful walls she had built around her heart tremble with the force of memories she had tried so hard to bury. "Marcus," she whispered, but he held up a hand. "No, Mom. Listen to me. I know what happened between you two. I know about the fights, the disappointments, the way you both lost yourselves somewhere along the way. But I also know what I saw in his eyes today." His voice grew softer, more urgent. "And I know what I see in yours right now." Elena turned away, facing the stove where the sauce had begun to bubble and pop. The domestic scene felt surreal, ordinary, and extraordinary at the same time. She was just a woman making dinner for her son, and yet she felt as if she were standing at the edge of a precipice, looking down at a future she had never dared to imagine. "It's been 6 years, Marcus," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. 6 years since the divorce. People change. Life moves on. "But have you moved on?" he asked, and the question hit her like a physical blow. "Really, Mom? Because I've watched you for 6 years, and I've never seen you look at another man the way you used to look at Dad. I've never seen you smile the way you used to smile." She closed her eyes, remembering. God, how she remembered. The way David's laugh used to fill their kitchen on Sunday mornings. The way he would sneak up behind her while she cooked, wrapping his arms around her waist and nuzzling her neck until she would swat him away with a dish towel, laughing despite herself. The way he would look at her across crowded rooms as if She were the only person in the world who mattered. But she also remembered the fights that grew longer and more bitter as the years passed. The way success at his law firm had slowly consumed him, leaving less and less room for the family he claimed to love. The missed dinners, the cancelled vacations, the growing distance between them that felt like an ocean neither of them knew how to cross. "We hurt each other, Marcus," she said, opening her eyes but keeping her back to him. "Some things can't be undone. Can't they?" His voice was closer now, and she could feel his presence behind her. "Mum, what if I told you that Dad left his firm 6 months ago? What if I told you that he's been going to therapy, working on himself, trying to understand what went wrong?" Eleanor's breath caught. She turned slowly, searching her son's face for any sign of deception, but found only earnest hope and a maturity that made her heart ache. "What if I told you," Marcus continued, "that he's been living in that small apartment downtown, not because he can't afford better, but because he's been putting money aside? That he's been saving for something he calls making amends?" The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm. Elena leaned against the counter, her legs suddenly unsteady. "Marcus, why are you telling me this?" He was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Because I love you both. Because I've spent 6 years shuttling between two broken people, who are too proud or too scared to admit they're still broken about each other. Because I graduate next month, and I'm moving to Chicago for my job, and I can't bear the thought of leaving you both alone in your separate little worlds of regret." Tears pricked Elena's eyes. Her son, her beautiful, wise son, carrying the weight of their failures on his shoulders. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "He's different, Mom," Marcus said urgently. "I can see it in the way he talks about work now, like it's just a job, not his whole identity. I can see it in the way he asks about you, careful and hopeful and scared all at once. And I can see it in the way he looks when he talks about the mistakes he made." Elena sank into one of the kitchen chairs, her hands trembling as she pressed them against her mouth. "I don't know if I can do this, Marcus. I don't know if I can open that door again." "You don't have to decide anything right now," he said, sitting across from her. "But Mom, what if you're throwing away a second chance at happiness because you're afraid of getting hurt again? What if you're both throwing it away?" She looked at her son, really looked at him, and saw not the boy she had protected and nurtured for 18 years, but the man he had become. Thoughtful, compassionate, brave in ways she had never been. When had he grown so wise? When had he started taking care of her, instead of the other way around? "There's something else," Marcus said quietly. "Something Dad doesn't know I'm telling you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, placing it gently on the table between them. He dropped this when he was getting his wallet out to pay for coffee. I picked it up and, well, I couldn't help but look. Eleanor's heart stopped. She stared at the box as if it might explode, her mind racing. "Marcus, no. You can't be serious. It's your ring, Mom. Your original engagement ring. The one you gave back to him during the divorce." His voice was soft, reverent. "He's been carrying it with him." With shaking hands, Elena reached for the box. Inside, nestled in faded satin, was the simple solitaire David had given her 21 years ago. It wasn't large or ostentatious, they had been young and barely making ends meet, but it had been chosen with such love, such hope for their future together. "He never sold it," she whispered, lifting the ring to catch the light. "All these years." "He never sold it," Marcus confirmed. "And Mom, when I asked him about it, he got this look on his face, like he was seeing a ghost. He said, 'Some things are too precious to let go of even when you should.'" Elena felt tears spill over, running down her cheeks as she held the ring. So many memories were attached to this small circle of gold and diamond. The proposal on the beach at sunset. The wedding in her parents' backyard. The way David had slipped it back onto her finger after Marcus was born, whispering that now it represented not just their love, but their family. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't go through that again. The hoping, the trying, the possibility that we'll just hurt each other all over again." Marcus reached across the table and covered her, hand with his. "But Mom, what if you don't? What if you've both learned enough, hurt enough, grown enough to make it work this time? What if the love that brought you together is stronger than the pride that tore you apart?" Elena looked at her son through her tears, seeing David in his eyes, in the stubborn set of his jaw, in the way he refused to give up on something he believed in. "When did you become so wise?" she asked with a shaky laugh. "I had good teachers," he said simply. "Two parents who loved each other and loved me, even when they couldn't figure out how to stay together. But Mum, I think maybe they can figure it out now. I think maybe it's time." Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the ring in her palm. 6 years of carefully constructed independence, of learning to be whole on her own, of building a life that was peaceful if not passionate. Was she brave enough to risk it all again? "He's at the coffee shop every Wednesday at 7, Marcus said quietly. "Same table by the window. He orders a large coffee, black, and a blueberry muffin he never finishes. He brings a book, but he never reads it. He just sits there, looking out the window, like he's waiting for something." Elena opened her eyes, meeting her son's gaze. "How do you know all this?" "Because I've been watching him for months, trying to figure out how to tell you. Trying to figure out if I should tell you." He squeezed her hand. "I decided that love is always worth the risk. That regret is heavier than disappointment. That maybe, just maybe, some stories deserve a second chance at their happy ending." Elena stood abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked their small garden. The roses David had planted during their marriage still bloomed there, wild and untended but somehow still beautiful. She had never been able to bring herself to remove them, though she had told herself a dozen times that she should. "What if it doesn't work?" she asked, her voice small. "What if we try again and it's even worse than before?" "Then at least you'll know," Marcus said, coming to stand beside her. "At least you'll know that you tried. That you were brave enough to fight for love one more time." Elena turned the ring over in her palm, feeling its familiar weight. "I loved him so much," she whispered. "I loved him so much it nearly destroyed me when it fell apart." "I know," Marcus said gently. "But Mum, that kind of love, the kind that can nearly destroy you, that's also the kind that can save you, if you let it." Elena looked at her son. This young man who had somehow become her anchor, her compass, her reminder that love was worth the risk. "What would you do?" she asked. "If you were me?" Marcus smiled, and for a moment she saw the little boy who used to climb into her lap when he was scared, who used to believe she could fix anything with a kiss and a band-aid. "I'd put on my best dress," he said. "I'd go to that coffee shop, and I'd remind Dad why he fell in love with me in the first place." Elena laughed despite her tears. "Just like that? Just like that?" He paused, his expression growing serious. "But Mum, whatever you decide, I want you to know that I'm proud of you. For the mom you've been, for the woman you've become, for the strength you've shown. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be loved the way you love others, completely, generously, without reservation." Elena felt her heart swell with love for this remarkable young man who had somehow grown up when she wasn't looking. "I love you so much," she whispered, pulling him into a hug. "I love you too, Mom," he said, holding her tight. And I love Dad. And I think maybe it's time for all of us to stop being afraid of that love. Elena pulled back, looking at the ring one more time. Then, with a deep breath that felt like the first real breath she had taken in years, she slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had never been away. Wednesday, she said, her voice stronger now. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Marcus grinned, and Elena saw David's smile in his face. Tomorrow is Wednesday, he agreed. Elena looked at her reflection in the kitchen window, seeing a woman who had loved and lost and survived. A woman who had raised a son who believed in second chances. A woman who maybe, just maybe, was brave enough to believe in them too. I should probably start with a phone call, she said. But Marcus shook his head. No, he said firmly. Trust me on this. Some things are better said face to face. Some things require the courage of showing up. Elena nodded, understanding. Tomorrow, she would show up. Tomorrow, she would take the biggest risk of her life, walking into that coffee shop with her heart in her throat and love in her hands. Tomorrow, she would find out if some stories really did deserve a second chance. But tonight, she would make dinner for her son and listen to him tell her about his new job in Chicago. Tonight, she would hold this moment, this perfect, terrifying, hopeful moment close to her heart. Tonight, she would let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, the best was yet to come. As she turned back to the stove, Elena caught sight of the ring on her finger, catching the light as she stirred the sauce. For the first time in 6 years, her kitchen felt full of possibilities instead of just the aroma of home-cooked meals. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tonight was for hoping. And in the space between hope and answers, Elena allowed herself to remember what it felt like to believe in love again. The sauce was perfect.